The great hall of the Volanti diplomatic station was filled with light and music. Thousands of guests had gathered from across the galaxy to witness something rare. A human man was about to marry a human woman, but this was no ordinary wedding. It was a symbol of peace between Earth and the ancient Volanti dominion. Daniel Carter stood at the altar in a simple black suit. He was not a tall man, and he did not look like a hero. His hair was brown and slightly messy. His face was kind and calm. He smiled softly as he watched the doors at the far end of the hall. The music changed, and Lavra Bennett appeared. She wore a white dress that flowed like water behind her. Her eyes found Daniel immediately, and her smile could have lit up the darkest corner of space. She was one of Earth's finest diplomats, the woman who had helped create the first trade agreement between humans and the Volanti. And today, she was walking toward the man she loved. The guests were a mix of species from dozens of worlds. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few were made of living crystal. They all watched with curiosity and respect as Lavra reached the altar and took Daniel's hands. The officiant, an old Volanti priest with silver skin and 4 arms, began to speak the ancient words of union. Everything was perfect. Everything was peaceful. Then the doors burst open. A wave of cold air swept through the hall. The guests turned and gasped. Standing in the doorway was a figure that made even the bravest warriors step back. Empress Azalith Vacan had arrived. She was tall and magnificent, with deep purple skin and eyes that glowed like dying stars. Her robes were made of woven starlight, and a crown of black metal rested on her head. She had ruled the Volanti dominion for over 800 years. Her word was law across 1,000 worlds. No one had expected her to come. The Empress walked slowly down the aisle. Her guards followed behind her, their armor gleaming. The guests bowed as she passed, but she did not look at them. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the altar. Fixed on Daniel. Lara squeezed Daniel's hand. He could feel her tension, but he kept his face calm. The Empress stopped a few feet from the altar. The officiant bowed deeply. "Great Empress," the priest said, "you honor us with your presence." Zalith did not respond to him. Instead, she looked at Daniel like he was an insect that had crawled onto her dinner plate. "So," she said, her voice echoing through the hall, "this is the human male who thinks he is worthy of standing beside Ambassador Bennett." The hall went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Laura stepped forward. "Empress, Daniel is my chosen partner. Our union has been blessed by both our governments." "Blessed by governments," Zalith repeated with a cold smile. "But not by me." She raised one elegant hand. "I invoke the ancient right of challenge. The Verkan challenge of worth." Whispers spread through the crowd. Many of the alien guests looked horrified. The Volanti among them lowered their heads in shame. The officiant's forehands trembled. "Empress, that tradition has not been used in centuries." "It is still law," Zalith said simply, "and I choose to use it now." She turned to face the entire hall. The challenge of worth allows any guest to question whether a partner is truly worthy of their spouse. If the challenged cannot prove their worth, the marriage is forbidden. Lara's face turned red with anger. "This is outrageous. Daniel does not need to prove anything to you." "Perhaps not to me," the Empress said. "But what about to the galaxy?" She gestured to the walls, where floating cameras recorded everything. "This ceremony is being broadcast to every corner of known space. Billions are watching. They will see whether this human male has any worth at all." She turned back to Daniel. Her eyes were cold and cruel. "Look at you," she said. "Small, weak. Your species lives for barely a century. You are children playing in a universe built by giants. What could you possibly offer a woman of Lavra Bennett's standing? What could a creature like you contribute to a galaxy that existed long before your kind crawled out of the mud?" Daniel said nothing. He simply looked at the Empress with calm eyes. Your silence proves my point, Zalith said. You have nothing to say, because there is nothing to say you are nothing. From the crowd, a man in a military uniform stepped forward. Admiral Nathan Cole, Daniel's oldest friend and former commanding officer. His face was tight with fury. Now wait just a minute, Nathan said. You can't just walk in here and insult. Nathan. Daniel's voice was quiet but firm. It's okay, Nathan stopped. He looked at Daniel with confusion and concern. Daniel gently released Laura's hands and stepped toward the Empress. He was shorter than her by nearly a foot, but he did not seem small. There was something in his eyes, something that made even Zalith pause for a moment. I accept your challenge, Daniel said. The Empress raised an eyebrow. You accept? Yes. Daniel nodded. You have questioned my worth in front of the galaxy. I will answer in the traditional Valanti way, through demonstration. For a moment, something flickered in the Empress's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by cold amusement. Very well, she said. The challenge consists of 3 trials: a test of mind, a test of body, and a test of spirit. You will face each one, and when you fail, as you surely will, your marriage will be forbidden, and humanity will be exposed as the primitive species you truly are. She smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. Do you still accept? Daniel looked back at Laura. She was afraid for him. He could see it in her eyes, but there was also trust. Complete and absolute trust. He turned back to the Empress. I accept, he said again. Not because I need to prove anything to you, but because humanity has never run from a challenge. And we never will. The Empress laughed softly. It was not a kind sound. Then let us begin, she said, and let the galaxy witness the fall of human pride. She turned and walked toward the arena chambers, her guards following. Daniel took a deep breath. Laura rushed to his side. Daniel, you don't have to do this, she whispered. We can leave. We can go back to Earth. He took her hands and smiled. If I run now, they will think all humans are cowards. I can't let that happen. He kissed her forehead gently. Trust me. Laura looked into his eyes for a long moment. Then she nodded. I trust you, she said. I always have. Daniel squeezed her hands one more time. Then he turned and followed the Empress toward the arena. He did not know what trials awaited him. He did not know if he could win. But he knew one thing for certain. He would not give up. Not today. Not ever. Because that was what it meant to be human. The arena was a massive circular room with walls made of dark metal. Floating platforms surrounded the center, where hundreds of alien dignitaries sat watching. The cameras continued to record everything. Billions across the galaxy were still watching. Daniel stood in the center of the arena. He looked small and alone, but his eyes were steady. Empress Zalith sat on a raised throne at the head of the arena. High Counselor Thren, a tall Valanti noble with golden skin, stood beside her. He leaned close to whisper in her ear. The human will fail quickly, Thren said. Our war masters have trained for centuries. This will be over before it begins. The Empress nodded slowly. Let us hope so. I want this finished. She raised her hand, and the arena fell silent. The first trial is the test of mind, she announced. The challenger will face our greatest war master in a strategic battle simulation. They will command fleets in holographic combat. The first to destroy the enemy flagship wins. A door on the opposite side of the arena opened. A massive Valanti warrior stepped out. He was nearly 7 feet tall with muscles like steel cables. His name was Commander Varth, and he had never lost a battle simulation in 200 years. Varth looked at Daniel and laughed. This is my opponent? A tiny human? This is an insult to my skills. Daniel said nothing. He simply walked to his command platform. The lights dimmed. Suddenly, the air above them filled with holographic ships. Thousands of them. Two fleets facing each other across an artificial battlefield. Daniel's fleet glowed blue. Vorath's fleet glowed red. "You may begin," the Empress said. Vorath immediately sent his forces forward in a classic Volanthi attack formation. His ships moved like a wave of death, perfectly coordinated and devastatingly efficient. The crowd murmured with approval. This was the might of the Volanthi. This was why they had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Daniel did not attack. Instead, he pulled his fleet back. Vorath laughed again. "Running already, human? This is what I expected from your pathetic species." Daniel still said nothing. He continued to retreat, drawing Vorath's fleet deeper into the battlefield. Lara watched from the crowd. Admiral Nathan Cole stood beside her, his hands clenched into fists. "What is he doing?" Lavra whispered. Nathan's eyes narrowed. He was beginning to understand. He's not running. He's thinking. Vorath pressed his advantage. His fleet surrounded Daniel's forces on three sides. Victory seemed certain. The Volanthi commander raised his hand to give the final order. Then Daniel moved. His flagship suddenly accelerated directly toward the center of Vorath's fleet. It was suicide. Everyone could see that. "Is he mad?" Thren asked, leaning forward. The Empress said nothing. She was watching with strange intensity. Daniel's flagship plunged into the heart of the enemy formation. Vorath's ships turned to destroy it. But that was exactly what Daniel wanted. While every enemy ship focused on his flagship, Daniel's remaining forces swept around from the sides. They had been hiding in the sensor shadow, appearing weak and scattered. But now they struck like a knife. Vorath's fleet was out of position. His ships were too focused on the flagship to respond to the new threat. Daniel's forces tore through his defenses and reached his command ship. Flagship exploded in a burst of holographic fire. The simulation ended. Daniel had won. The arena was completely silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. A human had defeated Commander Vorath. A human had won the test of mind. Vorath stared at the empty space where his flagship had been. His face was twisted with shock and shame. "How?" he whispered. "How did you do this?" Daniel finally spoke. His voice was calm and tired. "You expected me to fight like you," he said, "to meet your strength with strength. But humans learned long ago that strength alone does not win wars. We learned to be clever. We learned to sacrifice. And we learned that sometimes the best way to win is to make your enemy think you have already lost." He stepped down from his platform. "Your flagship was a symbol of your power. You protected it above everything else. So I gave you a target you could not resist. And while you chased it, I took what really mattered." Vorath had no answer. He simply bowed his head in defeat. The crowd began to whisper. Some were angry, but many were impressed. A few even began to clap. Empress Zalith raised her hand, and silence returned. "The human has won the first trial," she said. Her voice was cold, but there was something new in her eyes. Something uncertain. High Counselor Thren leaned close again. "A lucky trick, nothing more. The second trial will break him. No human can survive the endurance chamber." The Empress nodded slowly. "Then let us proceed." She stood from her throne. "The test of mind is complete. But mind alone is not enough. The second trial will test your body. You will enter the endurance chamber and survive conditions that push even the strongest Volanthi to their limits." She smiled coldly. "The chamber will shift between extreme heat and extreme cold. The oxygen will thin. The pressure will change. You will suffer in ways you cannot imagine." Daniel looked at the Empress. His face showed no fear. "I understand," he said. Lara pushed through the crowd toward him. Guards tried to stop her, but she shoved past them. "Daniel, please," she said, taking his hands. "You've already won one trial. That's enough. You've proven your worth." Daniel shook his head gently. "If I stop now, they will say I got lucky. They will say humans can only win through tricks. I have to show them what we really are." "What you really are is human," Laura said, tears forming in her eyes. "You're not built for this. Your body can't handle what Volanthi can handle." Daniel smiled. It was the same kind, calm smile he had worn at the altar. "Maybe not," he said, "but my body isn't what makes me human. It's everything else." He kissed her forehead. "Wait for me," he said. "I'll come back. I promise." Laura held him for a long moment. Then she let go. Daniel turned and walked toward the endurance chamber. The door was massive and dark, like the entrance to a tomb. The Empress watched him go. For the first time, there was doubt in her ancient eyes. "He is brave," she murmured. "I will give him that." Thren smiled. "Bravery will not save him." "Nothing will." The door opened. Cold air rushed out like the breath of death itself. Daniel stepped inside. The door closed behind him. And the true test began. The endurance chamber was a nightmare made real. Daniel stood in the center of a metal room with no windows and no escape. The walls were covered with vents that could pump out heat, cold, or poison. The floor could become ice or burning coals. The ceiling could lower the air pressure until breathing became impossible. This chamber had broken warriors from a dozen species. The Volanthi used it to test their strongest soldiers. Many did not survive. Daniel was just a human. The first wave hit him like a wall of fire. The temperature shot up to levels that would cook meat. Daniel fell to his knees immediately. His skin turned red. Sweat poured from his body like water. Outside the chamber, the crowd watched through cameras. Laura gripped Admiral Nathan's arm so hard that her fingers turned white. "He's going to die," she whispered. Nathan shook his head. "You don't know Daniel like I do. That man doesn't know how to quit." In the chamber, Daniel forced himself to breathe slowly. He remembered his training. He remembered the survival courses from his years in the military. Heat was just a sensation. Pain was just information. He could handle this. Then the temperature dropped. In seconds, the room went from burning to freezing. Ice formed on the walls. Daniel's sweat turned to frost on his skin. His muscles locked up. His body screamed for warmth. He fell onto his side and curled into a ball. His teeth chattered so hard, he thought they might break. The crowd watched in silence. Even those who disliked humans felt uncomfortable. This was cruel. This was too much. But Daniel did not stop moving. Slowly, painfully, he forced himself to stand again. Empress Zalith leaned forward on her throne. She had expected him to fall by now. She had expected him to beg for release. "Increase the difficulty," she said quietly. High Counselor Thren looked at her with surprise. "Empress, we are already beyond standard levels. If we go higher, he will certainly die. Then he will die proving himself," she said. "Or he will survive and earn my respect. Either way, I want to see what this human is truly made of." Thren nodded and gave the order. Inside the chamber, the conditions became worse. The air grew thin. Daniel gasped for breath. It felt like he was drowning on dry land. His vision began to blur. His legs gave out. He crashed to the floor. For a moment, he did not move. The crowd held their breath. Laura covered her mouth with her hands. Then something happened. In his mind, Daniel was somewhere else. He was remembering a day from 5 years ago. A day that changed everything. He was aboard his frigate, the Resolute. Alarms were screaming. His ship was damaged and burning. Outside the viewport, a medical station was under attack. The Kreth, a hostile species known for their brutality. had surrounded Outpost Varus. The station held 4,000 refugees from a dozen worlds. Men, women, and children, including Volanti children. Daniel's orders were simple. Retreat. Save his crew. Let the station fall. But Daniel could not do that. He could not leave innocent people to die. So he disobeyed orders. He flew his single frigate directly into the Kreth fleet. He fought for 3 days without sleep. His ship was falling apart around him. His crew was exhausted, but they held the line. On the 3rd day, reinforcements finally arrived. The Kreth retreated. The station was saved. Daniel had carried wounded aliens to escape pods with his own hands. He had refused to leave until every single refugee was safe. When they finally pulled him off the station, he collapsed from exhaustion. The survivors called him a hero. But Daniel never told anyone what he had done. He did not want fame. He did not want medals. He just wanted to help people. Now, lying on the frozen floor of the endurance chamber, Daniel remembered why he fought. He did not fight for glory. He did not fight to prove himself to an alien Empress. He fought because giving up was not who he was. It was not who humans were. He opened his eyes. His arms shook as he pushed himself off the floor. His legs were numb with cold. His lungs burned from lack of oxygen. But he stood, one step, then another, then another. The finish line was on the other side of the chamber. A simple metal door. All he had to do was reach it. The crowd began to murmur. Some stood from their seats. They could not believe what they were seeing. Empress Zaleth's eyes were wide. Her hands gripped the arms of her throne. Impossible, she whispered. Daniel fell again. His face hit the frozen metal floor. Blood ran from his nose. His body was failing. Every cell in his being begged him to stop. He started crawling. Inch by inch, second by second. He dragged himself toward the door. Laura was crying openly now. Nathan had tears in his eyes too, though he would never admit it. Come on, Daniel, Nathan whispered. Come on. The chamber threw everything at him. Heat blasted him from one side. Cold struck from the other. The air pressure dropped until his ears bled. But Daniel did not stop. He reached out one hand and touched the door. The chamber powered down. The test was over. Daniel had survived. Medical teams rushed in. They lifted him onto a stretcher and carried him out. His body was broken. His skin was burned and frostbitten at the same time. His breathing was shallow and weak, but he was alive. Laura ran to his side. She took his hand and pressed it against her face. Daniel, can you hear me? She said through her tears. Daniel's eyes opened slowly. He looked at her and smiled. It was a weak smile, but it was still the same kind, gentle smile she had fallen in love with. Still standing, he whispered. Well, sort of. Laura laughed through her tears and kissed his hand. Empress Zaleth approached slowly. Her face was unreadable. She looked at Daniel for a long moment. 2 trials complete, she said finally. 1 remains. The crowd murmured again. Even after everything they had witnessed, the Empress was still continuing the challenge. The test of spirit, she said. You will face the truth seer. You will reveal your deepest self. And we will see if your spirit is worthy of the body that refused to fall. She turned and walked away. Daniel closed his eyes. The medical team began treating his wounds. Laura looked at Nathan. What is the test of spirit? Nathan shook his head. I don't know. But whatever it is, Daniel will face it. He always does. Laura looked back at Daniel. He was unconscious now, his body finally surrendering to exhaustion. She leaned close and whispered in his ear. I don't care what they say. You're already worthy. You always were. She stayed by his side as they carried him away. The final test was coming, and it would reveal secrets that Daniel had kept hidden from everyone, even from her. 3 hours passed before Daniel could stand again. The medical team had done remarkable work. His burns were treated. His frostbite was healing. But his body was still weak and covered in bandages. None of that mattered to him. He had one more trial to face. The Hall of Spirits was the most sacred place on the Volanti station. Its walls were made of a strange crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Ancient symbols covered every surface. The air itself seemed to hum with power. This was where the truth-seers worked. These were Volanti priests who could look into the mind and soul of any living creature. In this hole, no one could hide. No one could lie. Daniel walked slowly into the chamber. His legs were unsteady, but he refused help. Lavra walked beside him as far as the entrance, then stopped. "I can't go in with you," she said. "The rules forbid it." Daniel nodded. "I know." Laura took his hand. "Daniel, whatever happens in there, whatever they see, it won't change how I feel about you. I love you. Nothing can change that." Daniel looked at her with strange sadness in his eyes. "I hope that's true," he said quietly, "because there are things I never told you. Things I never told anyone." Before Laura could respond, Daniel turned and walked into the Hall of Spirits. The door closed behind him. Inside, the truth-seer waited. She was an ancient Volanti woman with skin like white marble and eyes that seemed to see through everything. Her name was Priestess Yanara, and she had served in this hall for 500 years. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a stone chair in the center of the room. Daniel sat. His wounds ached. His body begged for rest. But he kept his eyes on the priestess. "The test of spirit is simple," Yanara said. "I will look into your soul. Your memories, your deepest truths, will be projected for all to see. If you are worthy, your spirit will shine. If you are not, your shame will be revealed." She tilted her head. Many try to hide their worst moments. They fail. The crystal sees everything. "I understand," Daniel said. The Nara raised her hands. The crystals in the walls began to glow brighter. The air grew thick with energy. "Then let us begin." Outside the hall, the crowd watched through projection screens. Empress Zelith sat on her throne with cold anticipation. This was the trial she had been waiting for. This was where the human would be exposed. The crystals flashed suddenly. The air above Daniel filled with light and images. Memories. His memories. Playing out like a movie for all to see. The first images were simple. A young Daniel on Earth, playing in green fields. His parents teaching him to ride a bicycle. His first day at school. These were happy memories, innocent and warm. But then the images changed. Daniel in military training. His face harder, older. Learning to fight. Learning to lead. Learning to sacrifice. And then came the memory that changed everything. The crowd saw a small frigate floating in space. The Resolute. Daniel's ship. Outside the viewport, a massive battle raged. Enemy vessels surrounded a medical station. Outpost Varus. The name sent a shock through the Volanti in the audience. They knew that name. Every Volanti knew that name. The memory continued. Daniel receiving orders to retreat. Daniel refusing. Daniel turning his damaged ship toward the enemy fleet. "He's insane," someone in his crew said. "Maybe," Daniel replied. "But I'm not leaving those people to die." The memory showed 3 days of desperate fighting. The Resolute was hit again and again. Systems failed. Crew members fell. But Daniel never stopped. On the second day, escape pods from the station began launching. Daniel positioned his ship to protect them, taking fire meant for the refugees. The memories showed faces. Alien refugees rushing past Daniel as he helped them board escape pods. Men and women with tears in their eyes, thanking him. Children clutching his hands. And then the crowd saw something that made them gasp. VELA and the children. A group of young Volanthi, no more than younglings, being carried to safety by Daniel himself. One of them was crying, and Daniel knelt down to comfort her. "It's okay," the memory of Daniel said. "You're going to be okay. I won't let anything happen to you." The child looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Promise?" she whispered. "Promise," Daniel said. He picked her up and carried her to the last escape pod. He did not board himself. Instead, he turned and ran back into the burning station. "There are still people left," he said to his crew. "I'm not done." For 11 more hours, Daniel searched the damaged station. He found survivors hiding in collapsed sections. He pulled wounded aliens from burning rooms. He carried them on his back when they could not walk. When reinforcements finally arrived, Daniel was barely conscious. His suit was failing. His body was broken. But he refused to leave until medics confirmed that every single refugee had been saved. 4,000 lives. Saved by one man. The memories faded. The hall fell silent. Empress Zalith sat frozen on her throne. Her face had gone pale. "The shield of Varys," she whispered. He was the shield of Varys. Every Volanthi in the room knew the story. 5 years ago, an unknown human commander had saved Outpost Varys. The survivors had called him a legendary figure, a guardian spirit who appeared from nowhere and saved their children. But no one ever knew his name. The human military never released the records. The man himself never came forward. Until now. Laura stood outside the hall with tears streaming down her face. She had never known. Daniel had never told her. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. Priestess Yanara looked at Daniel. Her ancient eyes were soft. "You never sought recognition," she said. "Why?" Daniel's voice was tired but clear. "Recognition wasn't the point," he said. "Those people needed help. I could help them. That's all that mattered." He looked up at the glowing crystals. "I didn't save them to become famous. I saved them because it was the right thing to do. Because when I looked at those children, I saw people who deserved to live. Their species didn't matter. Their planet didn't matter. They were innocent. And innocents deserve protection." He turned to look directly at the projection screen, knowing the Empress was watching. That's what humanity is. We don't fight because we're strong. We fight because we believe some things are worth fighting for. Love, family, the lives of strangers we will never meet again. These things matter to us more than our own survival. The hall was completely silent. Priestess Yanara bowed her head. "I have looked into your spirit, Daniel Carter," she said, "and I have found no darkness. Only light. Only love. Only the courage to stand when all others would fall." She raised her hands. "The test of spirit is complete. You have passed." Outside the hall, the crowd erupted. Aliens from dozens of worlds began to cheer. Some were crying. Others were shouting Daniel's name. But Empress Zalith did not move. She sat on her throne, staring at the projection screen. High Counselor Thren leaned close. "Empress, what should we do? The crowd supports him. If we deny him now, there could be unrest." The Empress said nothing. She was looking at Daniel's face on the screen. The face of the man who had saved her people's children. The face of the man she had called worthless. Something cracked inside her. Something old and hard and proud. For the first time in 800 years, Empress Zalith Rakan did not know what to say. The final judgment was coming, and the galaxy was watching. The great ceremonial hall was filled once again. Every seat was taken. Every camera was recording. Billions across the galaxy watched their screens, waiting for the final judgment. Daniel stood at the center of the hall. His body was wrapped in bandages, and he leaned slightly to one side from exhaustion. But his eyes were clear, and his head was held high. Laura stood beside him, holding his hand. She had not let go since he emerged from the Hall of Spirits. She did not intend to let go ever again. Admiral Nathan Cole stood nearby with a group of human diplomats. Their faces showed pride and worry in equal measure. The hall fell silent as Empress Zalith Rakan rose from her throne. She walked slowly down the steps toward Daniel. Her guards moved to follow, but she raised a hand to stop them. She approached alone. The Empress stopped a few feet from Daniel. For a long moment, she simply looked at him. "Daniel Carter," she said. Her voice echoed through the silent hall. "You have completed all 3 trials. You have shown us your mind, your body, and your spirit." She paused. "I came to this ceremony expecting to expose a primitive creature, a weak being unworthy of standing beside a woman of Ambassador Bennett's rank. I expected to prove to the galaxy that humans are children playing in a universe they do not understand." Her voice grew softer. "I was wrong." A murmur ran through the crowd. No one had expected to hear those words from the Empress. "You defeated our greatest war master through wisdom, not strength. You survived conditions that have killed warriors twice your size. And when we looked into your soul, we found not darkness, but light." She took another step closer to Daniel. 5 years ago, my people's children were trapped on Outpost Varus. The galaxy turned its back on them. The great powers refused to help. They said it was too dangerous. They said it was not their problem. Her voice cracked slightly. But one human refused to abandon them. One human flew a broken ship into impossible odds. One human saved 4,000 lives, including the lives of Volanti younglings. She looked into Daniel's eyes. "We called that human the Shield of Varus. We said he was a spirit sent by the ancestors. We prayed that one day we might find him and thank him for what he did." Tears appeared in the Empress's ancient eyes. "And now I find him standing before me. The same man I mocked as worthless. The same man whose worth surpasses that of any warrior I have ever known." She did something that no Volanti ruler had done in 1,000 years. She bowed. Empress of 1,000 worlds, lowered her head before a single human man. The crowd gasped. Some cried out in shock. This was unprecedented. This was impossible, but it was happening. "Daniel Carter," the Empress said as she straightened, "I owe you an apology that words cannot express. I judged your species by the length of your lives and the softness of your bodies. I did not see the iron in your spirits. I did not see the fire in your hearts." She turned to face the entire hall. "Let it be known across the galaxy. Daniel Carter is not merely worthy of his bride. He's worthy of the highest honor the Volanthi can bestow." She reached up and removed a pendant from her own neck. It was made of black metal and ancient crystal, shaped like a shield. "I name you Kethver," she said, placing the pendant around Daniel's neck. "Protector of the innocent. Guardian of the weak. This title has not been given to an outsider in 800 years. You have earned it." The crowd erupted. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy rose to their feet and cheered. The sound was deafening. It shook the walls of the hall. Lavra was crying. Daniel looked at the pendant in wonder. "I don't know what to say," he managed. The Empress smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had shown since arriving. "Say nothing. Actions speak louder than words. Your actions have spoken loud enough for the entire universe to hear." She stepped back and raised her hands. "Let the ceremony continue. Let these 2 humans be joined. And let me stand as witness of honor." The officiant stepped forward, still looking stunned. But he recovered quickly and began the ceremony again. This time, there were no interruptions. Daniel and Laura faced each other. They held hands. They looked into each other's eyes. "Daniel," Lavra said through her tears, "I thought I knew you. I thought I understood who you were. But I had no idea. You saved thousands of lives and never said a word. You're a hero, and you never even told me." Daniel shook his head gently. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm just a man who couldn't walk away when people needed help. Anyone would have done the same." Lavra laughed softly. "No, Daniel. Not anyone. That's what makes you special." The officiant guided them through their vows. Daniel spoke as clearly and steadily. "I promise to stand beside you in light and darkness. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you for all the days of my life. And I promise that wherever there are people who need help, I will always answer. Because that is what humanity does. We protect. We serve. We love." Laura spoke her vows through tears of joy. "I promise to be your partner in everything. In peace and in struggle. In quiet moments and in storms. I promise to love the man who saves strangers and never asks for thanks. I promise to remind you every day that you are worthy. That you have always been worthy." The officiant raised his 4 hands. "By the power vested in me by the Volanti Council and the people of Earth, I pronounce you husband and wife." Daniel and Laura kissed. The hall exploded with celebration. Music filled the air. Aliens of every species danced and sang. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. On distant worlds, humans and aliens alike watched the moment. They saw a quiet man in bandages stand against impossible odds. They saw an ancient Empress bow in respect. They saw love triumph over prejudice. Later that evening, as the celebration continued, Empress Zalith approached Daniel on a quiet balcony overlooking the stars. "May I speak with you?" she asked. Daniel nodded. They stood together in silence for a moment. "I want you to understand something," the Empress said. "I did not challenge you because I hate humans. I challenged you because I fear them." Daniel looked at her with surprise. "Fear us?" The Empress nodded slowly. "Your species is so young. You have existed for barely a moment in cosmic time. And yet, you have already spread across the stars. You adapt faster than any species we have ever seen. You are creative, unpredictable, and impossibly stubborn." She looked out at the stars. "I have ruled for 800 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. But I have never seen anything like humanity. You terrify me because I cannot predict what you will become." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "I understand why you might feel that way. We surprise ourselves sometimes too." He turned to face her. "But I want you to know something. Humans don't want to be feared. We don't want to conquer the galaxy or replace the old powers. We just want to find our place. We want to help. We want to make things better." He offered his hand. "We could be enemies. Or we could be friends. I know which one I would prefer." The Empress looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she took it. "Friends," she said. "Yes, I think I would prefer that too." They shook hands under the light of 1 billion stars. The next morning, the news had spread across the galaxy. Humanity, once seen as primitive newcomers, was now spoken of with respect. The story of Daniel Carter had changed everything. And somewhere on the Volanti station, a human man and his new wife watched the sunrise together. "What happens now?" Lavra asked. Daniel smiled and put his arm around her. "Now we go home," he said. "And we live. We love. We help whoever needs helping." Lavra leaned against him. "Sounds perfect," she said. Daniel looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of people had watched a human groom stand against impossible odds. Not for glory, not for fame, but for love, and the galaxy had learned what humanity had always known. Worth is not measured in years or strength. It is measured in the courage to stand when all others fall, and to love when all others hate. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it would always mean.